Alright, welcome back to the third part in this series of updates. I feel like the lighting is really quite bad. It's good enough for you to be able to see what titles I'm talking about, but I don't know, the sun is it's about to set, granted, but I have all the lights on. I have the curtains up, or the whatever. So there's not I can't really improve it any better now. So I'm gonna try to hurry before the sun sets, actually sets entirely. And yeah, so this time it's horror time. I have a few Hammer titles. I have three titles from Studio Canal, and then I have a couple of indicator box sets that I did show you before, but I have a few in these two sets that I hadn't seen, so I'm just gonna show them again and talk about the ones that I recently saw. And then after that we have some other slash horror movies, more in like the slasher slash splatter genre. So gonna start with the stuff from the 60s, or well, Hammer, and then work our way up to the 80s, I guess, mostly, and then a couple of more recent ones at the end, I think. So let us begin with the Studio Canal Hammer titles. So this first one is more of a psychological film. This is Fear in the Night. I'm not sure if you would call this a thriller or a horror. I guess it's somewhere in between. This one I wanted to see mainly because of Judy Geeson, actually, who's on the cover here, and of course Peter Cushing as well. And we have Joan Collins and Ralph Bates. So this is a film that I think was written and directed by Jimmy Sangster. Now Jimmy Sangster, you will know if you're a fan of Hammer. He wrote a lot of the Hammer films, but he didn't really direct a lot. I found out looking it up. But he wrote and directed this. This is it's I have to say that when it comes to Hammer, I mean, I respect and I enjoy the gothic ones, but I have to say that I prefer the psychological movies, the psychological thrillers or horror movies that are set in modern times. I really like movies like The Snorkel, or Cash on Demand, Never Take Sweets from Strangers, or let's see, Fanatic, movies like that. And this one sort of falls into that category. It is I don't know how to describe it. It's got a few things going for it, but it is fairly modest in some way, and it is fairly predictable. It's not a great film, but it is enjoyable. I like Judy Geeson. There are a few pretty cool scenes with Peter Cushing. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of I don't know. It's not a film that blew me away, but I like the style. I like the tension in this, and I had fun with it. And these Studio Canal Blu-rays, they always have. I only have a few of them, but all the ones that I have, they have a new featurette, making of featurette, which usually, I mean, they feature film historians, Hammer experts, and stuff like that. And to the extent that they can find members who worked on the film, whether it's actors or crew members, they seem to track. I mean, they occasionally track those down. I've only seen a few of them, but I think I'm gonna show these two next ones side by side because they're kind of related. Plague of the Zombies and the Reptile. I think maybe this was the one. Plague of the Zombies was the one which had like a half-hour long documentary. The actress Jacqueline Pierce is in both of these movies. They were sort of made around the same time, using the same sets and so on. I think there may be a couple other actors who are in both of them. And I know that Jacqueline Pierce appears on one of these two, possibly both, Blu-rays. So I really like the Blu-rays themselves, and of course the covers are nice. They look really nice together on the shelf, I imagine. So there's a ton of these that I don't have. I think there must be about a couple dozen of these releases. Yeah, these are I mean, Plague of the Zombies, it's, you know, pre-Romero, and so the zombies are a bit more more somnambulist rather than attacking. They're more sort of serving their masters here. There's some interesting comments on the featurette about like comparing zombies before and after Romero, basically. Mark Gatiss appears on the disc talking about that a bit. But this one was really enjoyable. There are some really cool scenes in this involving effects, especially with Jacqueline Pierce, her character, and there's an interesting concept too of the zombies, their purpose in this film, and yeah, some cool sets. There are some cool sets in this one too. Maybe that I can't say for sure. There is a mine set in this one. Maybe that was the same set that they used in this one for a different purpose. It may not have been the same one, but I suppose it could have been, because they were made around the same time. They were both directed by John Gilling. They actually talk about that in the special features, how they would release double bills, but they separated these two. They paired these two up with, I don't remember which ones, but they paired this one up with another one and this one up with another one, as opposed to having these two as a double bill, because it would have been too obvious that they were sort of filmed around the same time, and they have kind of some similarities going on. But yeah, the reptile was entertaining as well. Yeah, I didn't love it. There's always things in these Hammer films that I like, but more often than not, I end up just kind of enjoying them. I don't usually love them, but I am having a good time discovering Hammer films, and I don't intend to stop. There's a lot of like I said, a lot of Studio Canal releases of Hammer films, and a lot of other Blu-rays as well that I really want to get. So I have a lot to go when it comes to Hammer. I mentioned Indicator, so Volume 4 and Volume 5. The one that I hadn't seen last time was The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, which is a bit of a goofy film. I haven't seen any of the other adaptations of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I did look it up. I was just curious. I mean, I'm aware of the story, sort of what it is. I haven't read it. The novel. I don't even know who wrote the novel. I don't even. I know very little about that, but I'm aware of the kind of the story. What the story is. But I was curious about the various film adaptations that had been made over the years, and I think I found one from the 20s and one from the 30s or the 40s, both of which looked interesting. But I couldn't really find any Blu-ray releases in the UK. So I think this may be, well, I may have seen a more modern version of the story at some point in the past, but I don't know the story well enough to know how truthful this is to the original story or stuff like that. But they do talk about it, of course, in the special features, about how the ending was supposed to be a bit different, and how it doesn't entirely work. Like the actor who plays the title character or characters is like the biggest weak link in the film, or whatever, weak part of the film, which is unfortunate, because it's like, it's what the film is. So they talk about that a lot in the special features, and that's something I love about Indicator. They will treat mediocre, or films that may be considered by certain film historians on the discs to be lesser works, but they will still treat these lesser works with respect, and they will give them commentaries and the treatment that a film deserves. But they won't lie about a film's quality. They won't pretend like everything about the film is great. They will actually be critical about certain elements of the film, which is really good. But I really had fun with it. There's something quite goofy about it that I really liked, and Christopher Lee is in it. He plays a pretty vile character in many ways, but he was really entertaining to watch. Like Christopher Lee, his acting was really fun. This one, granted, is not a horror box set, but it is Hammer, and so it made sense to, include that here as well. The ones that I've seen since last time are these two at the bottom: Scarlet Blade and The Brigand of Kandahar. Scarlet Blade was actually really entertaining. I mean, this might not be the best box set that they've made in terms of the quality of the films, but I liked Pirates of Blood River, and I liked the Scarlet Blade as well. The story is actually fairly complex. Not once you get into it, it's not really that difficult, but it's got a lot of moving parts, and I was thoroughly entertained by this. So these two I really liked. And then, like I said, when I showed this last time, well, I assume I said it, Visa to Canton I really didn't like. And now I can also report that Brigand of Kandahar I didn't really like either. So 2 weak ones and 2 good ones. And then this one has Oliver Reed as well. It's really good to see Oliver Reed in so many Hammer films. Like I've understood by now that he made a lot of them early in his career, and there's even a few more that I haven't seen. Like he was in Captain Clegg, I think, and I haven't seen that. And then he was in something else that I haven't seen. Paranoiac, is that it? And also Curse of the Wolf Man or something. So another 3 that I don't have, and they have standalone Blu-ray releases in the UK. So I'm gonna get those. Both because of Hammer, just the fact that they're Hammer movies, and the fact that they're supposed to be some of the better Hammer films, and then Oliver Reed is in them as well. So those may be some of my next Hammer orders. Again, I'm having a really fun time exploring Hammer. And then this one too, Indicator. Sort of, we can use this as a bridge from the Hammer stuff to the more violent stuff that's coming up after this. This is Bloody Terror, the shocking cinema of Norman J. Warren, which is a little bit unusual for Indicator because, I mean, in my opinion, it's not quite as graphic and violent as it may seem based on the cover. I mean, I wouldn't have been surprised if there was more blood and guts in these. There is a fair amount of violence, absolutely, but not as much as I would have perhaps expected, maybe. Some of them are more violent than others, I suppose. But I will say about this set, this is really, it's an interesting set. I wouldn't say that either of these films were that great. I mean, I think maybe my favorites were, I think Prey and Bloody New Year were my 2 favorites. Bloody New Year had a bunch of fun, cheap effects. So that's the kind of film that this is, nothing more, nothing less. Prey was eccentric in a different way. Like it had some strange scenes that just seem to go on. There's a scene in the water with the characters kind of wrestling in slow motion, and it goes on forever with weird music, and it's a very strange scene. Like I'm not exactly sure what the thought was behind that scene, but I enjoyed it, and there are some interesting elements to the story. It's more of a story than an effects movie, but then at the end it sort of becomes more of a, it's sort of I think I wrote something about this on Letterboxd, I can't remember exactly, but it's so I may be repeating myself here, but it starts like a genre film and it ends like a genre film, but then a lot of the stuff in the middle, or if in the rest of the film, it's actually quite interesting, and I hate to use the word artsy, but a little bit like that. So Prey was an interesting one. The other ones I didn't like. And overall, I wouldn't say that the films are that great, but what's interesting about this is that it's such a good presentation of films, Contains several disturbing cannibalistic scenes. Okay, I guess so. But the box set itself is really interesting because Norman J. Warren was heavily involved in this set. He does commentaries for all of the films. I don't know how many of them are new. I'm sure I can find out by looking at the back here, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that now. Actually, it doesn't say what year they're from. I think some of them were new though. I think. And the interviews are all new. There are a bunch of short films that he made when he was younger that he sort of does introductions to, and so as a presentation and as this document, almost like a kind of biographical account about the director. Like the movie serves as a collection of movies, but it also serves as a kind of movie documentary. You're watching the films and then you're listening to his interviews for the various films, and so throughout this whole journey you learn a lot about Norman J. Warren as a filmmaker and as a person. You kind of get to know him and you get to hang out with him a lot, and so it becomes a really fun experience, even though the films themselves aren't the absolute best. But yeah, I really had a lot of fun with this set, even though the films weren't. I've repeated myself enough already, but yeah, so I liked it overall. So I don't know what order I should show these ones in. I haven't really put them in any order at all. Okay, so I have two from 88 films, so I'm gonna start with those, I guess. I have Zombie Flesh Eaters 3. It's still sealed. I bought the second one too, and as Amazon tends to do, they divide a big order into smaller shipments, and one of the orders contained the second one, but for whatever reason they sent it back to the warehouse, and I haven't been able to get it again because funds were a bit low, and so it was almost kind of a good thing that I got some money back for that order, because I kind of needed it at the time, and so I couldn't really make the order again. So I have to wait for a while, and then I can get the second one eventually whenever I have the funds. But so here I am stuck with the third one, and I can't really watch it. I suppose I could, but I prefer watching the second one and then the third one the way it was meant to. I don't think it's really a big deal with these kinds of films, but I like doing it that way. So yeah, it kind of sucks because I really was looking forward to watching them, but I'm looking forward to getting the second one at some point. Here's one called Virus, also known as Zombie Creeping Flesh. I guess I preferred the alternate cover. I think also known as Hell of the Living Dead, I think. This is a really cheap zombie film directed by, I don't remember, Bruno Mattei. Uses some stock footage. It's got some cheap kills, some kind of strange scenes. I have to describe one scene to you. There is a possibility that I misinterpreted the situation, but I rewinded and it really did look like this. That this is what oh my god, it really did look like what I'm about to describe to you is what happened. Anyway, there is a scene in this where there is a group of zombies. There are people with machine guns shooting the zombies, right? So we have two zombies here. We have a guy here with a machine gun. He gets ready to shoot them. He does the motion of shooting them. And the zombies, the extras who are playing the zombies, they do this zombie shake, or this I don't know, this motion that you might make if you're an extra and you're being peppered with bullets. This kind of, yeah, they're taking bullets. Anyway, they're communicating to the audience that this is what's happening. Only in the film, the character with the machine gun notices after having started to shoot that the gun is not loaded, and so so I think what happened was that the extras thought that, because I guess they add the sound effects later, obviously. So the extras who were playing the zombies, they must have thought, they must not have gotten the message or the memo that in this part of the scene, the machine gun is out of bullets. So that was one of the funniest things that I'd seen in a while. The extras playing these zombies, thinking that they're being shot, but really it, they weren't, because there was no bullets in the scene. Anyway, am I making myself clear enough? Hopefully I am. I just thought that was such a delightful scene that they didn't redo, and the scene was all the better for it. Like, those are the scenes that I enjoy the most in films like this. The fuck ups, basically. But it is an entertaining film. It's not the most memorable one, but yeah, I had fun with it. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry about the creaking chair. I hope it's not making too much noise. Actually, I do have one more from 88 Films here, but it's not from the Italian collection. It's from the Vault number 10. Body Melt. This is an Australian, or is it? Yeah, Australian, right? Melbourne exploitation. Okay, it's an Australian film, and it's an effects movie. There are sort of incestuous, were they cannibalistic hillbillies kind of people? Really strange people. A really strange scene with some really great set design, actually, and memorable characters. And there are other scenes with what the title refers to, that are entertaining and kind of disgusting, as they're meant to be, and just a lot of effects in this that were memorable enough for me to really have fun with this. Yeah, it is a splatter film that I have heard about over the years, that I was really happy that 88 Films put out, and I really liked it. It's certainly not for everybody. Yeah, they compare it to Street Trash here. That's definitely a valid comparison. Yeah, it's fun. That's all. Okay, we got a few from Arrow. We got 3 films from Arrow. The first one is The Initiation. This might be another one of those that I am going to sell. I didn't hate it. I actually kind of had fun with it. It's got a few good things going for it, but it's not really ultimately memorable enough for me to ever want to go back to it. So I think maybe this is going to be a victim of the sell pile. But it was quite entertaining. It's a slasher. It's got some of the recognizable elements of a slasher. I don't really have too much to say about it, to be honest. It was fun, but not my favorite. I actually bought 3 Blu-rays that I sold, so I'm just gonna show these next 2, which I liked, and then I'm gonna talk about a few that I sold. But these next 2 I really had fun with. These I'm going to keep and watch again. Scared Stiff. I love this cover. It looks a bit like House, something similar to the House movies, or the first 2 anyway. And it is a bit like that. There are some similar kind of creature effects and practical effects, which reminds me of that kind of supernatural stuff going on. It is a movie that is a bit all over the place. The plot is ultimately not really what I care about. It's all the stuff that went into making the effects that I like, the visual stuff. And I mean, that's why I like movies like these, obviously. And so I do think that if you like House, then this might be something that you'll enjoy. Yeah, again, it's not it doesn't really come together as a story or as a film even. But the individual scenes are really fun. This one Doom Asylum could very well have been one of those that I didn't like at all. But there was something about this. It's a very comedic slasher film. It seems very low budget. But there's something about this which strangely works really well, and I don't know exactly what. Just some kind of magic that came together with all the elements. With the pasting works well. There's a couple of effects or kills that are fun. The location is really unspectacular, like this warehouse, I guess, or this big building, empty, abandoned building. Oh, it does say Asylum. I guess maybe that's what it was. Anyway, it doesn't feel all that unique. But there's something about the pacing, something about this that worked. How long is this? It's 79 minutes, so it really doesn't outstay its welcome. Even though it has some filler scenes, that's another word that I apparently can't pronounce. Filler, Filler, filler scenes. It does have some of that, granted, but it just works for some reason. Yeah, it has one of the actresses from Sex and the City. I don't know what her name is, and I don't know what the character she plays. Oh, one of Carrie Bradshaw's. Okay, Kristen Davis. I figured it was probably on the back. Yeah, so she's in this, and she has one of the fun kills, by the way. The ones that I sold were, let's see, The Chill Factor. Actually, one of the worst horror films that I've seen in a while. Really, it's kind of baffling that there was a whole movie there, because it's only been a few months since I saw it, and I don't remember anything about it. It was just one of the most forgettable horror films that I've ever seen. So that was a no-brainer. The fact that I was gonna sell that. Also one which was kind of more of a comedy than a horror film. Microwave Massacre. It was fine, just nothing that I would want to watch again, and very cheap. Doesn't necessarily have to be a downside, but surprisingly few effects. That was my problem. It was mainly a goofy film that was just amateurish in a comedic way, or the amateurishness came out in the form of comedy or whatever. It just wasn't that good and wasn't that funny. The best one out of these three that I sold is still quite mediocre, but it's called Trapped Alive, which had some good stuff in it. I was actually kind of impressed with the opening. It does throw you into a story which seems believable, and which is it is well filmed and well paced, and it makes you excited for what to come. But it kind of falls apart at some point, and it doesn't really deliver on the things that it's promising. There is a couple scenes, especially, you know what? Honestly, there is basically one scene in the end that is cool, that is visual, but the film should have had 10 times that to be satisfying. So it just wasn't enough at all in any way. But it was definitely not one that I would discourage people to see if you like horror films or genre films, because it did have some things going for it. It just didn't hold all the way. Okay, I have two more here. Another one from the 80s, and then one that is quite new. Maniac, first of all, from Blue Underground. I think this has a newer release. Blue Underground probably... Blue Underground re-released this, which may have been why the Swedish seller wanted to get rid of it, because they got the new one, perhaps. But I'm fine with this one. I don't know exactly what the new one contains. It might have a new remaster, a couple new featurettes. But I mean, this is the 30th anniversary edition from Blue Underground, and it has a bunch of special features. And I was fine with this. It's region free. I think maybe all Blue Underground releases are. This one was unbelievable. I really loved it. It's what's the actor's name? I think Joe Spinell, that's it. He was great in this. He really does look the part. He plays the part really well. It's like a gritty slasher kind of psychological film with some really great effects and some shocking scenes in the end. Yeah, I recently talked about a film called Bad Boy Bobby. Uh, there are a few things about this which reminds me of that film as well, but I actually prefer this one. It is very violent. I mean, it is a horror film, a splatter film. Um, at least it's got some scenes which are definitely splatter. But I loved it. I really did. So this is one that I will hold on to and return to. Now this last one is sort of interesting because it's called Midsummer. It's a Swedish tradition or a Swedish summer tradition, which I've never been a particularly big fan of, and I haven't actually participated in the tradition in many years, and I intend to keep it that way. It's just not fun. So, of course, watching Ari Aster, after having done the incredible Hereditary, tackle, presumably in a satirical way or darkly comedic way, a tradition in a country that I thought, well, maybe from an outsider's perspective, it seems really strange, and he uses this as just a way to fuel some horror. I don't know. I was intrigued, though, why he would choose this for his next film. I can't say that that there's a whole lot of stuff in this that I recognize from my experiences having celebrated Midsummer. But I don't know, it's my problems with this, though, were mainly pacing. I did watch the director's cut, which is like almost 3 hours long. So maybe that was part of the problem, but I think even the theatrical version is like 2 hour 20 or something. So I'm guessing I would have felt some of the same. I would have had some of the same problems with the theatrical cut because I found it to be rather repetitive, exploring the same themes of culture shock, exaggerated scenes of culture shock, and this continuous stream of just repetitive scenes of celebration and tradition that it just didn't seem to have a lot of other things going for it than that. There were it just dragged on a little bit too long, and I didn't see a lot of I personally didn't see a lot of variation in what he was trying to do. And then at the end, I don't know, it's got an interesting ending, but I don't know. I didn't hate it, but I thought Hereditary was much more effective. This one I haven't really. It didn't really get to me in the same way, in the same emotionally draining way, which you could imagine that it would, because it is a very psychological film. It deals with grief, and it's got an ending which is very atypical, and it is memorable, but the way of getting there, I just thought that it was kind of hitting the same note over and over again until the viewer was left completely exhausted. Well, maybe not exhausted, but I was a bit bored with it, to be honest. Again, I did watch the director's cut. I'm not sure why he felt like he needed to make a director's cut, because I imagine maybe the theatrical cut is enough. But I don't know. I don't really feel like watching it again. So and the next time I see it, I'll check out the theatrical version and see. Maybe I like it better that way. But I didn't hate it. Definitely not. I just didn't entirely see what it was trying to do. And well, anyway, Midsummer. So that's all for today. The next time we're gonna talk about some boutique labels. We're gonna talk about Eureka, BFI, and Criterion, especially. Maybe a couple indicators. I'm not quite sure yet, but that's gonna be the next one. So stay tuned for that. As always, thank you very much for watching my rambling, and I will return to you within the next week with part 4.